a hare inside, and inside the hare a pigeon, and inside the pigeon a small box, and inside the box one black and one shining beetle. The shining beetle held her life, and the black one held her power. If these two beetles died, then her life would come to an end also. When the old hag went out, Ambrose killed the wild boar and took out the hare. From the hare he took the pigeon, from the pigeon the box, and from the box the two beetles. He killed the black beetle, but kept the shining one alive. So the witch's power left her immediately, and when she came home she had to take to her bed. Having learned from her how to escape from his prison to the upper air, Ambrose killed the shining beetle, and the old hag's spirit left her at once. In a Kalmuck tale we read how a certain Khan challenged a wise man to show his skill by stealing a precious stone on which the Khan's life depended. The sage contrived to purloin the talisman while the Khan and his guards slept. But not content with this, he gave a further proof of his dexterity by bonneting the slumbering potentate with a bladder. This was too much for the Khan. Next morning he informed the sage that he could overlook everything else, but that the indignity of being bonneted by a bladder was more than he could bear, and he ordered his facetious friend to instant execution. Pained at this exhibition of royal ingratitude, the sage dashed to the ground the talisman which he still held in his hand, and at the same instant blood flowed from the nostrils of the Khan, and he gave up the ghost. In a Tartar poem, two heroes named Akhmolot and Bulat engage in mortal combat. Akhmolot pierces his foe through and through with an arrow, grapples with him, and dashes him to the ground, but all in vain. Bulat could not die. At last, when the combat has lasted 3 years, a friend of Akhmolot sees a golden casket hanging by a white thread from the sky, and bethinks him that perhaps this casket contains Bulat's soul. So he shot through the white thread with an arrow, and down fell the casket. He opened it, and in the casket sat 10 white birds, and one of the birds was Bulat's soul. Bulat wept when he saw that his soul was found in the casket. But one after the other the birds were killed, and then Akhmolot easily slew his foe. In another Tartar poem, 2 brothers going to fight 2 other brothers take out their souls and hide them in the form of a white herb with 6 stalks in a deep pit. But one of their foes sees them doing so and digs up their souls, which he puts into a golden ram's horn, and then sticks the ram's horn in his quiver. The 2 warriors whose souls have thus been stolen know that they have no chance of victory, and accordingly make peace with their enemies. In another Tartar poem, a terrible demon sets all the gods and heroes at defiance. At last, a valiant youth fights the demon, binds him hand and foot, and slices him with his sword. But still the demon is not slain. So the youth asks him, "Tell me where your soul is hidden, for if your soul had been hidden in your body, you must have been dead long ago." The demon replied, "On the saddle of my horse is a bag. In the bag is a serpent with 12 heads. In the serpent is my soul. When you have killed the serpent, you have killed me also." So the youth took the saddle-bag from the horse and killed the 12-headed serpent, whereupon the demon expired. In another Tartar poem, a hero called Kök Khan deposits with a maiden a golden ring, in which is half his strength. Afterwards, when Kök Khan is wrestling long with a hero and cannot kill him, a woman drops into his mouth the ring which contains half his strength. Thus inspired with fresh force, he slays his enemy. In a Mongolian story, the hero Joro gets the better of his enemy, the Lama Choridong, in the following way. The Lama, who is an enchanter, sends out his soul in the form of a wasp to sting Joro's eyes. But Joro catches the wasp in his hand, and alternately shutting and opening his hand, He causes the lama alternately to lose and recover consciousness. In a Tartar poem, two youths cut open the body of an old witch and tear out her bowels, but all to no purpose. She still lives. On being asked where her soul is, she answers that it is in the middle of her shoe sole, in the form of a seven-headed speckled snake. So one of the youths slices her shoe sole with a sword, takes out the speckled snake, and cuts off its 7 heads. Then the witch dies. Another Tartar poem describes how the hero Tartaga grappled with a swan woman. Long they wrestled. Moons waxed and waned, and still they wrestled. Years came and went, and still the struggle went on. But the piebald horse and the black horse knew that the swan woman's soul was not in her. Under the black earth flow 9 seas. Where the seas meet and form one, the sea comes to the surface of the earth. At the mouth of the 9 seas rises a rock of copper. It rises to the surface of the ground. It rises up between heaven and earth, this rock of copper. At the foot of the copper rock is a black chest. In the black chest is a golden casket, and in the golden casket is the soul of the swan woman. 7 little birds are the soul of the swan woman. If the birds are killed, the swan woman will die straightway. So the horses ran to the foot of the copper rock, opened the black chest, and brought back the golden casket. Then the piebald horse turned himself into a bald-headed man, opened the golden casket, and cut off the heads of the 7 birds. So the swan woman died. In another Tartar poem, the hero, pursuing his sister who has driven away his cattle, is warned to desist from the pursuit because his sister has carried away his soul in a golden sword and a golden arrow. And if he pursues her, she will kill him by throwing the golden sword or shooting the golden arrow at him. A Malay poem relates how once upon a time in the city of Indrapura there was a certain merchant who was rich and prosperous, but he had no children. One day, as he walked with his wife by the river, they found a baby girl, fair as an angel. So they adopted the child and called her Bidasari. The merchant caused a golden fish to be made, and into this fish he transferred the soul of his adopted daughter. Then he put the golden fish in a golden box full of water, and hid it in a pond in the midst of his garden. In time the girl grew to be a lovely woman. Now the king of Indrapura had a fair young queen, who lived in fear that the king might take to himself a second wife. So hearing of the charms of Bidasari, the queen resolved to put her out of the way. She lured the girl to the palace and tortured her cruelly, but Bidasari could not die, because her soul was not in her. At last she could stand the torture no longer, and said to the queen, "If you wish me to die, you must bring the box which is in the pond in my father's garden." So the box was brought and opened, and there was a golden fish in the water. The girl said, "My soul is in that fish. In the morning you must take the fish out of the water, and in the evening you must put it back into the water. Do not let the fish lie about, but bind it round your neck. If you do this, I shall soon die." So the queen took the fish out of the box and fastened it round her neck, and no sooner had she done so than Bidasari fell into a swoon. But in the evening, when the fish was put back into the water, Bidasari came to herself again. Seeing that she thus had the girl in her power, the queen sent her home to her adopted parents. To save her from further persecution, her parents resolved to remove their daughter from the city. So in a lonely and desolate spot they built a house and brought Bidasari thither. There she dwelt alone, undergoing vicissitudes that corresponded with the vicissitudes of the golden fish in which was her soul. All day long, while the fish was out of the water, she remained unconscious. But in the evening, when the fish was put into the water, she revived. One day the king was out hunting, and coming to the house where Bidasari lay unconscious, was smitten with her beauty. He tried to waken her, but in vain. Next day towards evening